Alright, in this video we're going to cover how to swap over to an aluminum oil filter cap assembly versus the plastic oil filter cap assembly that the 4Runner comes with the 1GR-FE engine. Alright, first step we're going to take is we need to remove this plastic shield and the skid pan to get to where the oil filter housing is located. So to get the skid plate detached, the easiest way I found is actually to remove this plastic cover entirely. There's one plastic push pin and then a 10mm on both sides of it here. We'll take that off, then we'll undo the 4 bolts, which is one here, and then there's also one here, and one here for the skid pan. We'll be able to drop, or not the skid, but the skid plate, we'll be able to drop that then. So first, we'll remove these. Could use a trim tool, but what I found works is a flathead screwdriver. Put it in there, pry up all around, even pressure. And the push pin comes out then. So now with this one removed, this one removed, this one removed, we can get that out entirely, but putting it back in is a little bit hard because there's two pins basically that guide the skid pan in the front. So what I like to do is take off the rest of this plastic panel as well. For that, there's 3 more 10mm. Now, with that plastic gone, A, we can clean up some bugs, but B, right here, those are those 2 pins I'm talking about, and I like doing that because you can see where, from one of the first times I did it, as well as when the dealer did the 2 free oil changes when new, trying to slide it in there, you wind up hitting the surrounding metal a little bit, and I want to try and keep that as coated as physically possible. So I take that off, that way when I go to put this panel, the skid plate back on, I have a nice easy view and I can get it on completely. So now with the skid plate fully accessible here, we can take out this 12mm, this 12mm, this 12mm, and this 12mm here. Typically, I start with the front 2. And I move to the back 2. This one out. The pan's going to start to come down, so I usually support it with my arm and then run this last one out. And then it just swings down like this. It does just kind of hang there because it's in that channel and that channel there. So then just pull this up towards me. And just set it off to the side. You can now see this is the oil filter housing we're going to be replacing. Goes into the oil cooler there, but we'll take that off in just a minute here. Before we do that though, we're going to open up this skid pan back here, skid plate rather. It's an access panel in this plate with again those 12mm bolts, like so. We're going to take that off, and that'll let us get to the oil drain plug so we can get the oil draining while we then get our new filter housing prepped and ready to go. So we'll just take these 12mm bolts out. I don't think they're different necessarily than the others, but I do keep them separate. They maybe are slightly longer. I also lubricate the threads, which we'll do at the end when I put them in, just to make sure that the threads are good.
Alright, now with that access panel off of that rear skid plate, here's the oil drain plug right here. So when we get our drain pan, we'll break this off. I believe it is a 14mm. That is correct. So we'll break that 14mm drain plug off and let the oil start draining then. Alright, break our 14mm drain plug loose. We like to get the drain pan up close as well so I don't splash anywhere. And I will let that drain. Alright, we'll take our drain plug here. After we clean it off, I'm going to take and get a new crush washer. Part number in the description below. But we'll get a new one, clean it up, get that in there, and get the new drain plug on so we can then drain out where the filter housing is. Alright, with the plug all cleaned up here, I realized when I got my parts ordered, they did put the part number for the crush washer. Most places just use a generic one, but I ordered it all from the parts catalog and did an order. But that's what it looks like. Sometimes they're black, sometimes they're blue. I do believe the OEM one, which that's what this is normally blue. Sometimes it's a black one if they just pull it out of the bin when you wind up picking up a filter at the desk at the local dealer. So we'll take our new crush washer, just put that right on there, and we're good to go ahead and close the pan drain back up. So before we go start our thread, I'll go in here real quick, just clean up the area. And I could let it drip for another hour or two, but I mean, the oil's out. You're never gonna get everything out. I mean, you could leave it sit overnight, but it's good enough. I change it every 5,000 miles and time is money. So we'll go ahead, start the thread, put that in. Always start it by hand. I get it hand tight, clean up any oil drips, potential drips. Then I usually take not a torque wrench and just snug it. And now I'll go get the torque wrench out and we'll torque it to spec. Alright, and we'll take the torque wrench set to 30 foot-pounds or 40 Jimmy Neutron meters. Torque spec in the description below as well, but go ahead and torque it down to 30 foot-pounds. Alright. So with that then, I'm going to leave this open because once we do the actual fill of the oil after the filter change, I like to start the engine, make sure there's no leaks. I mean, it doesn't look like there is, but I always do that just to be on the safe side. So we'll leave this access panel open and we'll go and take the oil filter housing off and switch that over. before we go remove the plastic oil filter housing, just wanted to point out there is this clip here. It's a retainer clip. You just push down on it, it'll slide off like that. It's just to stop it from backing out. Depending on what oil filter wrench you use, you may or may not need to take that off. Personally, one I'll be using is this, the Motivix Tools MX 2320. You can get your name engraved on it, so when people borrow it, you know it's yours. But or laser etched, not engraved, rather. So we'll go ahead, we'll back this off. But first, before we do that, I'm going to take this off and insert the drain tool to drain what's in the housing before we do it, just so we make a little bit less of a mess. To get access to the housing drain, you just put a 3/8" drive-in extension and you should be able to crack that loose, and then we can insert the drain tool. Back that out. I'm gonna bring bring my drain pan over just in case. Sometimes you get a little bit. Yep. All right, so to drain this out, there's a tool that actually comes with the oil filter. Here's the OEM filter part number, YZZA5. Typically, I just give the last 5 at the dealer counter and I know which one that is. But within this box, you'll get 2 sets of O-rings. The small one is for this cap I just took off. Big one, obviously, for the whole housing. You'll also get this, kind of like a straw. And what it does is it pushes up inside of that, and then all the oil will drain out. And obviously, of course, you also get the filter. We'll go ahead and stick this in there and drain that out then. While I'm waiting for that to drain, I'm also going to clean up the cap that came off. Because we're going to need to reuse that cap.
Three hours later.
Can you move it along? I'm all out of time cards.
Alright, it's about time. 7 minutes exactly. Well, not 3 hours, but close enough. It feels like it. It does take a while, but it does save quite a bit of mess by not having that much oil in it. So I just take it, clean it up. I just kind of pull left and right, and then it comes unclipped. This time, it did take, let me see if I can clean this up. It did take the O-ring with it. There is an O-ring that goes on there, so that did come off at the same time. I'm just gonna set that, oh, it fell in. So I'll take my wrench on that 3/8" drive. I'll line it up with the flutes over on there. We'll just break it free. The other reason I'm doing this upgrade, other than plastic is not my favorite thing compared to metal, but the dealer sometimes over torques it. Now granted, I'm done with my free dealer oil changes as part of Toyota Care, but sometimes it feels like they put it on with a impact, and it's very hard to get off. And the metal one, I'd be less worried about cracking it. So now I got it almost to where that's off, I take the tool away, spin it out the rest of the way by hand. And there's our oil filter and housing. Now, typically this is not as full as it is right now, so this would just drain into the rest of it, but typically I'll just set it up here, let it drain out for a minute or two, and then we'll take it and we'll take the filter out. Because what we need to do for our task today is we need to get this straw or tube or part of the return removed, because the one on our new OEM aluminum one, which is not for this model specifically, it's for Avalon and a few different vehicles, it is not the same length. So we'll take the filter out here, try to do it one-handed. And so now we need to take this piece out. So I'm just going to clean up our housing here so we don't spill anything. And there is that O-ring. If we were doing an oil change and using this housing again, we'd want to remove this O-ring that goes in this channel here. Again, the filter comes with that, with the OEM filter. We're going to go ahead and throw this away. Always replace that. And usually I'll clean this up pretty good, because if you're going to get any drippage later, it could just be from residual on there, and then you don't know if it's a leak or if it's just stuff you didn't clean up. Good enough rarely ever is. And so here inside of here, you'll see this is kind of spring loaded. You push it down, you can turn left or right. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to take this out, and that spring that's in here is going to come with us too, because what that is doing is effectively spring loading this as well. That is how we were draining it when we were sticking that straw in there. So we'll go ahead, finish cleaning this up a little bit, and then we will switch over this return, or post, or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's actually the return. Maybe it is. I think it actually would be. So what we're swapping our plastic housing for is this part number here, made in JA Pan, 15620-31060, which is the cap assembly. And what you get with this is just really the cap. It comes wrapped in plastic, but it's basically the same exact design, but made of aluminum. And so here you can kind of see a little bit better what I'm talking about with that spring load. But you'll see from the two of these, that straw is not the same size, but otherwise everything else is pretty identical. Has the same flutes on it for the wrench, has the same apparatus for draining it out. This is where that O-ring's gonna go, just like there was the one on here, and that cap will cover that up then. But it'd be nice to have it be metal. We're going to remove the shorter piece and switch to the long one, but before we do that, inside here, you'll see there's this metal tab here and this metal tab here. Those need to be bent up just a little bit. Let's see if I can get that to focus here. These need to be bent up, just like so. And so now when I rotate it, see it will clear that area there. Let me see if I can get that better here. And so now when I rotate it, this part comes up and out. And then inside of here, there is this spring and this domed cap, and that domed cap
That's that part that I'm pushing up on the other side when we put that straw to drain that out. And that domed part needs to sit like that. We'll just dump that out and see there's the other side of it. So now we've got just the metal housing itself. And so now we'll do the same on the plastic one. So I'll just take this, bend up that middle on both sides. I should just be able to see if I can get that better there. Take it, rotate around, and now I've got that longer piece. The spring stayed in there, but the spring is just going to sit right in there like that, like we took it out. And this domed piece can also come right out. I think, if I'm correct in saying, the domed piece is pretty much, if not identical, so I will use the new one, just because I have the new one. The spring, though, let's see, so this one came from this one. Spring seems to be same diameter, same everything. It's just the tube that obviously is different. I think we'll use the new components on both fronts. Yeah. But if we take a look here at the center tube, you can see there the pretty pronounced difference in the lengths of them. I'll go get a dial caliper and we'll measure it to be super exact. All right, so we'll take our dial caliper here. And the one we're removing, we'll measure it from, that base part's the same, so we'll just measure just this. This one measures 58 millimeters. You can see it there. And the one that came out that we have to swap over is just 72 millimeters. So just a little bit longer, but obviously we'll get that swapped over and we will be good to go. I'm just curious when I'm looking at it here. It does look, it's kind of interesting actually. If I look at the inside of both of these, you can see the aluminum one has these 4 sections of it. So I would think that the oil wouldn't drain as completely with this one, but I mean, obviously, you know, you're splitting hairs, you're going to be flipping the oil filter housing over anyway. But it's kind of interesting because this plastic one doesn't have any of that. It's just a flat surface, so it might drain just a little bit more, but I mean, again, you're taking it out and you're flipping it over. So I'll take this, we'll set our piece in there, make sure that that's seated. I'm gonna hold it with my finger, flip it over. Yep, sure enough, that's exactly how it should be. We'll take our center piece here, we'll take it, we'll put it in, push down. Let's see if I can get it on camera here. Push down just like so, rotate it around, get it to line up, and so now we have it lined up there. I'm going to take a screwdriver and I'm going to bend those metal tabs back in place just a little bit there. That way there's no chance of it backing out. You can see now here, let me get it to focus. Now it's in there, it's not going anywhere. Tabs are all good. This is working. Check this end. Yep, good deal. So now what we'll do
is we'll get our filter and we'll put our new filter in here as well as our O-ring, and then we'll go and reinstall it in the vehicle. Just one thing I wanted to point out from the box is they do talk about getting that O-ring in the channel. In a metal case, it's actually a little bit clearer, obviously, because it's got a different finish, but this groove all the way around is where that O-ring is going to sit once we get that installed there. So all the way around here. We'll lubricate it and that, but for now we'll take our filter. I usually like to find where it says Toyota on it, right in there on the OEM filter. I put it facing in. Doesn't really matter which way you do it. I just always do it that way. Put it over the centerpiece, push down. We'll get it to lock in place. And now we have a nice aluminum oil filter housing for our oil filter. Put the seal on here, put it on, then we'll put the O-ring on here, and we'll seal that up as well then. I almost forgot. I'm going to clean this up just a little bit here, because I am going to put this back together with the other ends just in case, and I'll throw it in a box to hold on to it just in case I need a spare. Don't think I will, but you never know. So we'll take our component here, put the domed piece facing up. We'll take our centerpiece, put the spring in, make sure it's good to go. Not going to move anywhere. Push down on this. Rotate it around. And now that's locked in place then. Before I go ahead and put that back in, I'm just going to clean the surface up just a little bit here. Alright, so now I'll take some fresh new oil as well as my packet of O-rings that comes with it. Take the big O-ring. I'll take some fresh oil here. I'm just going to take my O-ring. I usually just dunk it in and then spin it around, get it fully coated in new fresh oil. And I'll take it, put it over here, and I'll work it down. Take one more dip of fresh oil, run it around, lubricate that really well. Just clean the housing up a little bit. Made a little bit of a mess trying to see what I could see on camera. Take the housing with lubricated O-ring. And so now we've got our aluminum oil filter housing with the O-ring sealed in. We'll go ahead, we'll get a torque wrench and we'll torque it to spec, which I believe is 18 foot-pound, 25 Newton-meter, but I'll double check that. Alright, I was correct, so we'll tighten it to 18 foot-pounds or 25 Newton-meters. Which is pretty close. Come on. When I did it hand tight, I just spun it on slowly, making sure not to bind up the O-ring at all. So I'm going to take my small O-ring that comes with this, along with that cap with the 3/8" drive that we took off. And we're going to put that O-ring on and seal up the housing. So I'm just going to take a light coating of oil, put it on that O-ring. We'll take that O-ring, put it in that channel. Get it lubricated all the way around. We'll take our cap and put that in. Start it by hand. And we'll get the torque spec for that and torque that down as well. And the torque spec of the cap is 9 foot-pounds or 13 newton meters. So now that cap is also tightened down, we can go ahead and add some oil. Alright, now that we've got 6 quarts in there, we'll start it up and we'll add the remaining 0.6 later. Alright, after running the engine for about 60 seconds, I like to get underneath and look and see if there's any leakage. I take a clean paper toweling, run it around, get any extra that is there. Check the drain pan as well. And then I'll start it just one more time and let it run for another 60 seconds and make sure that there's no leaks. And we'll just do a once over just to be sure. And now we'll put the access cover and the skid plate back on. Alright, now that we got the oil all cleaned up, we'll take our access panel. Now normally I put a little bit of lithium grease in these, but I did it last time, so we're not going to do it this time. We'll just take these and start the thread by hand. So real quick before I put the skid pan back on, I'm going to take that metal clip that we had. I'm going to put it, because it catches on this if it were somehow to back out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it, put it on this metal flute here. There. Take it and I'm going to push that up. Like so. It doesn't really fit exactly the same, but it'll be fine just like that. Alright, now we're going to refit the skid plate. So right here and right here, those little notches. We'll take the plate, put it in both holes.
So before we close up and go up and take it off the ramps, I'm going to torque down these two 12mm bolts for the oil filter access panel. Those are 21 foot-pounds or 29 Newton meters. You don't necessarily have to, but okay, so that's torqued, and then it's the same 21 foot-pounds or 29 Newton meters for the 4 bolts for the front skid plate. And then also this last one right here. All right, so the skid plate and the access panel back there are all torqued to spec then.
Last, we need to put back this plastic cover. You can see it matches with the bumper cutouts here. Let's put this back on. Match it up here. Fit underneath the bumper. First thing I usually do is this plastic push pin. Fit it into this hole. And fit it in here. Push that in. Kind of holds it in place. And I take these 10mm meters. And so now we'll torque them, 71 inch-pounds, 8 Newton meters. It's really just hand tight, but got the torque wrench out, so I might as well. All right, now we can go up top and finish filling it up after we get it off the ramp and level. So, having poured in the 5-quart jug and the 1 quart, and then letting it sit for a little bit after running it, we're sitting right about here. So, got another quart, and we'll just add it, the 0.6 that it calls for, and see where that gets us. So out of our 32 here, we should have just a little bit over 12 left to have it to spec then here. So we'll take this and we'll pour in the remaining 19 or so ounces. So what remains is just a hair over 12 if I'm holding it pretty level. So we'll start the engine and see where that is then. So now with our oil levels set properly, everything torqued down, new filter installed, we'd go reset our maintenance indicator. I have already done that because I'd done a tire rotation prior to this today, but you'd go in, you'd do the press and hold, or you'd go into the menu, however you do it with your vehicle. Could differ depending on the model year, but you go ahead, reset that, and you're all good to go. And you get to enjoy your aluminum oil filter housing for years to come.